Next up, we have Ascent Leadership. And what if your job was learning to lead? And I believe Scott is going to lead this part of the presentation. And just make sure that the microphone is open.
All right.
Scott, how are you?
I'm good. I think my mic's on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. So yeah, let's walk through this. And I'm going to briefly describe my company because this program is one slice of a larger company. And then I'll spend the bulk of the time kind of talking about this opportunity and then be open for a little Q&A. So I'm the CEO of SWAS Leadership, and it's a leadership development, coaching, consulting strategy firm. So we have 4 different divisions that we do in the company. And so I'm going to high level this and then we'll drill into this one. We have a whole healthcare division. We work with healthcare leadership. So I'm not a doctor, but I partner with medical professionals and doctors. And what we help is the culture, strategy, operations side. So, hey, we know the kind of technology or services or procedures that we need our culture to do. How do we get our people to actually do it? How do we get a thriving, effective organization? Well, that's the side we come in. We don't create the medical procedures, but we sure help the organizations get their people to follow them properly. So healthcare coaching, consulting, training. We work in a lot of Christian nonprofit ministry, work from churches to homeless shelters to all sorts of different organizations. So we do a bunch of ministry, coach consulting, and then we do a bunch of startup work. And so there's a lot of advising with tech startups and software companies and kind of helping entrepreneurs get going. And then the 4th division, which really is what we're going to drive into here, is Chick-fil-A. So before I get into the project, I'll tell you just a little bit about my story and how we have a whole division of our company that works with Chick-fil-A. So long story short, my first career field was musical theater performance. So I'm not your standard kind of CEO of the whole process. I'm an unexpected journey guy. So I grew up on the stage. I actually got a degree in professional performance and was a professional performer, actor, singer, all that kind of stuff. And had some early success, but really felt like this wasn't what God was calling me to, and said, okay, what do I do with my life? So I took a left turn and I went into ministry, and I became a youth pastor, music pastor, senior pastor, worked on Focus on the Family on some of their national tours, came back, did more senior pastoring. And in the process, as I was becoming a leader, trying to figure out this leadership thing, really kind of became passionate and excited about the impact of leadership. To be really frank, I made some early leadership mistakes and said, oh man, this leadership thing matters. And it's not the same thing as just having good theology or good art skills or whatever the industry we're in. There's this whole other thing on leadership that matters, and people and strategy and culture and all that kind of cool stuff. And I really feel like that became my calling and passion. And so that actually led me to Regent. So I came to Regent to get my master's in organizational leadership. And so came out to Virginia Beach, met my wife out there who was actually getting her MDiv at Regent as well. And in the whole process of this, got involved in coaching, consulting, launched my own coaching company, did a bunch of consulting work. And then, so here's where Chick-fil-A comes into the scene. So I graduated high school in Atlanta, which my high school happened to be right around the corner of the Chick-fil-A corporate headquarters. In fact, I went to high school with, among many others who are now at the corporate headquarters, the grandkids of the founder of Chick-fil-A. And so I knew all about them, knew them personally really well. But, you know, at the end of high school, I was going off on this crazy, I'm going to go be an actor for Jesus kind of thing. Now years later, I'm back home hanging and they say, hey, you do leadership. You should talk to the corporate office. And I was like, at a fast food joint? Like, I don't understand. And they're like, no, there's this whole leadership group. You got to talk to them. So long story short, I became a staff member of the corporate headquarters, and I reported to the executives and ran this kind of special leadership team where we studied awesome big challenges, culture changes, big issues we were trying to deal with. And we would study what the best in the world do and how they tackled those problems. And then I would bring solutions and programs back and say, hey, Chick-fil-A, here's how we did it. Let's create programs and tools to help you do the same thing. So basically was an internal leadership consultant, strategy guy for Chick-fil-A. After about a decade there, the opportunity to step out and do a bunch of that stuff on my own again there were some really big, cool opportunities. And another long story short, it was actually some of the Chick-fil-A executives encouraged me and endorsed me and said, you should do this. And then after I left, they turned around and immediately said, hey, and maybe we could do some work with you as well as a consultant. So I still do a ton of work for Chick-fil-A. I got to help build a lot of their systems and tools and design a lot of their curriculum that they still use. And so I already know them really well. So we do a bunch of stuff with them. And that leads us back to the Ascent Leadership Program. So in addition to the general coaching, consulting, strategy work that we do, so if you're interested in that or know people in that, we're always growing and looking at cool stuff we're doing there. We always have a huge demand for this Ascent Leadership Program. So now I'm going to describe the program and we'll walk through some of the details on this deal. So here's how this works. In addition to the work we might do with a big strategy or curriculum, one of the major challenges for the restaurants at Chick-fil-A, this franchise level, is trying to find enough people. So we help them find leaders to get involved and work at the restaurant level. And this is where we say this is not a normal company because most folks, I would say, suffer from what I would call the fast food stigma around this. Frankly, it's me, right? Like, remember, I'm leadership guy and they say, hey, you should talk to Chick-fil-A. And I was like, why, right? Like, I'm not a restaurant guy. Like, what? I don't want to work a register. Like, why would I work at Chick-fil-A? And they're like, no. I mean, we have people to run registers, but there's a whole other level and side to the business that as a customer, someone coming in and buying the sandwich, right? You don't see this side of the business. There are people in the back running the business, and Chick-fil-A is not your typical company. And I don't just mean they're nice people, but they are nice people. What I mean is the business side of this, the organization side of this thing is bigger and more intense than most people realize. So I'm going to throw a couple numbers at you to give you an idea of just how they fit in the normal restaurant space. So okay, if you want to compare them to other quick service restaurants, Subway's typical sales last year was about $900,000 per location. They're on the smaller end. More in the middle of the space is going to be like KFC or Arby's. They're going to be about, Taco Bell. They're all about $1.2, $1.3 million in sales per location. McDonald's is going to be on the upper end with like 2.1, maybe 2.2 million in location. Chick-fil-A, I challenge you to make a little mental guess here. What do you think they fit in the spectrum? So this year, Chick-fil-A is on track to be almost 5.7 million per location. Yeah, it's huge. And that's in 6 days to everyone else's 7, keep in mind. So the intensity of what they're doing in terms of volume, but what that means is the number of people. These guys, other places might have 6 to 10 people in the restaurant at one time. Well, Chick-fil-A restaurants aren't physically bigger. To run all this and manage all that complexity, they'll have 40 to 50 people at one time in there, 80 to 120 people on staff. And we work on the franchise level for this program on the upper end. So the average size of the people in our program are closer to 7 million per location. There is a role in the business for these director of finance, director of operations, marketing directors, human resource training directors. There's this leadership level that's a full-time professional degree required kind of job to say, hey, we need serious professionals to run a complex multi-million-dollar business. And again, most people are like me. I think there's a lot of us out there that are like, hey, it's a great sandwich, but I go to college so I didn't have to work in fast food, right? Like that's the last place I'm thinking. And there's some really cool opportunities there. Plus, yes, great values. They really, really care about their people. And the franchisees that are signing up for our program, we actually vet them and screen them in order to get in the Ascent Leadership Program. They have to be someone who has a passion and a commitment to do serious leadership development. this is not just a job. It's not just, so let's flip to the next deal. It's not just a job, though it is a job. So the next slide we'll talk about is how this is, yes, there's pay. You're going to get a good salary. And let's see, $45,000 a year kind of base, if you're going to be in places like, and we're all over the country. So if you're in some of the big cities like New York or LA, there'll be a cost of living bump, of course, but full, benefits, health insurance, all that kind of fun stuff. Hey, one of my favorite benefits is free meals while you're at Chick-fil-A. So just a little heads up, that's not a small one in my book. But yeah, so it's a real job, but it's not just a job. It's a 2.5-year program where you're going to get a hands-on experience. You're going to get curriculum. In fact, you'll get 2 different kinds of curriculum, one that's leadership stuff. And so each month you'll get another set of nuggets on building trust and teamwork and strategy and running meetings and, holding people accountable and giving feedback. I mean, the leadership side, people stuff, and then the operational stuff. How do you manage finances? And as you rotate, so it's a rotational program. So you'll spend, 6 months or so in one of the sections around operations, or you'll move into marketing for 4 months. And so there's, as you move into those zones, the curriculum follows you for that one, and you'll get marketing curriculum to say, okay, let's talk about how you actually learn to market a business, or, okay, let's talk about how to manage inventory of a multi-million-dollar thing and multiple shipments, and how do you track all. So you're learning leadership, you're learning business operations, and you get personally mentored. You'll have someone sit with you one-on-one at least once a month and talk about your life, your growth. And at the end of this experience, we will help you launch. So it's not just a here and done. It's a launch program, 2.5 years, and then we help you move on to the next piece. So some of the options that you could launch to, I think maybe the next slide talks a little bit about what comes next. We could launch you to, we're all over the country. So we could launch you to a career in Chick-fil-A. If you're interested, there's some actually pretty remarkable careers in Chick-fil-A, running restaurants, but also, hey, the corporate headquarters has got some interesting stuff. Or you might want to pursue the franchise path. Let me be clear, cannot guarantee you that you'll be selected as a franchisee, or can't guarantee you'll get the job at the corporate office you want. It's a highly competitive space. What I can guarantee you is that you'll be much, much more competitive for it. Oh, and it just so happens I know all those people and helped design a lot of the selection processes. And so I know a great deal of those options. So we'll consult with you, we'll prep you, we'll introduce you. You still have to do your own interviewing and get your own job, but we can help you. But we can also help you get jobs outside of Chick-fil-A. Remember the rest of my firm and all the great places we work with? I know lots of people in lots of industries. And again, I can't guarantee you a job, but we will be your consultant, guide, and introducer to connect you to the kind of space you're interested in. And we're not looking for someone who has to, you don't have to pick Chick-fil-A long-term, and you don't have to be Chick-fil-A coming in. Though, yes, if you've worked at Chick-fil-A before, it's a nice little bonus. What we're really looking for, we can teach you the technical stuff. What we're looking for are these qualities. If you're this kind of person, if you have this kind of leadership character, we can teach you the operational stuff. Like that's relatively easy. What's really hard is to find character like this, which is why I come back to places like my alma mater here at Regent and say, hey, I think you guys have the kind of character and quality, the kind of intelligence and humility that we're looking for. So this is kind of the deal. And we are, for this position, all over the country. We have a massive amount of openings for this position. Frankly, we have openings, and yep, you know what? I did not update this slide. So we have openings for immediate graduates, like right now, December 2018, you could get started, right? Frankly, we have openings like today, but 2018, but we have a waiting list that extends all the way into 2019 now. We're 18 months out with opportunities. So don't delay. If you want to start talking sooner so that, by the time you graduate where you're already going, we can help you hook that up. But yeah, it's, and I say all over the country, I mean, literally where there's a Chick-fil-A, we probably have a presence. We're not in all of the franchises, but we're in the great majority of them. So Florida, Texas, Minnesota, California, Seattle, New York, I mean, you name it. Iowa to Richmond, right around the corner. So there's a ton of opportunities. I mean, right in Virginia Beach, if you're interested. So yeah, we can help you. We can connect you. It's just so cool. So this is a huge program. Now, for the rest of our company, if you're interested, we have very few, but we do have a few openings around things like leadership consultants, coaches, instructional designers. But for this one, I mean, seriously, right now on my current waiting list, we are interviewing for 32 different openings right now. And we have a waiting list with many more. So this is a huge, cool opportunity. We've got a whole team of recruiters. There are 9 people who work on recruiting and sorting this thing. It's a big beast of an opportunity. And so you'd be joining a community of leaders, Ascent leaders, that we connect online, we work together, and you become one of the alumni of a program that's kind of helping connect people who have leadership potential, start their career or take their career to that leadership level. I'll finish with this last comment, and then I'll be open to kind of take Q&A and talk about me and the company if you're interested. Too often the path to leadership is like, how do I get to becoming a manager leader of people? Which, be clear, this job is not just work. By the end of this program, 2.5 years, you don't just lead people, you lead people who lead people. I think the best way to become a leader is to lead something. Now, we're going to mentor you and give you curriculum, but I have a master's in leadership. It was great, but hands down, it was when I got into practicing it that the growth took off. And I'm glad I had all that theory. It made a big difference, trust me, but it was when the theory was applied that it really kicked in. So that's the design of this program. And too often the path to leadership in most careers is, hey, why don't we come and you be the leader's assistant? You be the individual contributor who works for the leader, and you follow the leader, and you do a really good job being an individual contributor for 5, 6, maybe 7 years. And when that leader moves on or gets promoted, then if you did a really good job working hard, maybe you can take over their position. This job's designed differently to say, we're going to assume your leadership potential. And from day one, we're grooming you to be a leader. And by the end, you lead leaders. And from here on out, the rest of your career, you can say, I'm already a leader. Let's start the conversation at that level. So that's the vision. Let's grow leaders and let's launch them through a leadership development program / job.
That sounds like an exciting opportunity, especially for people interested in leadership, and to know that there's so many different places they can go. And it's sort of like your company seems to be like a platform. So instead of
Yes.
having to apply 100 different places, they can kind of just work with you and find out what the best fit would be.